Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so thrilled to be talking about the wonderful second season of Survival of the Thickest. I am joined today by actor, creator, and executive producer and writer Michelle Buteau, along with creator, showrunner, and executive producer Danielle Sanchez-Witzel. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you both about in terms of the scope of this season is the first season, you know, we saw Mavis being cheated on, and I've heard you both describe that there's almost this idea of it's like a death. You're grieving something, the idea of this life that you were going to have. And so we saw her figuring out what does that feel like. And it feels like season 2 is her really trying to build the foundation of what she wants her life to be. And I was interested in how that really set up the scope of this season for you both.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, most of the women in my family have been cheated on. And so like I only really understand how they, you know, bounce back, become strong, find their inner voice from being cheated on. So that was like, it was just inspiration for me. But I feel like now in season 2, Mavis is she's gonna try everything.
Yeah.
She's gonna try and do everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, there's a real wish fulfillment in how we portrayed this, the discovery of the cheating, which Michelle and I talked a lot about. But punching someone in the dick is
how Jersey people, yes.
But also, you know, it's like, that's how you want to handle it. So then what happens? And I think what you're pointing to it's a great insight, I think, on your part is season 1, we talked about being a moment, which is even in that first episode, M-O''ment.
That's right.
And, you know, we were realizing as we were developing season 2 that it's a movement. So, you know, that was kind of conceptually what we were thinking is, so what you both are talking about is that building. Okay, so now what? So now so I moved and this is what I want to do. Yeah. And here's how I want to put my, you know, what I want to do for a career, but how do you own it? How do you, you know, we talked a lot about leveling up in season 2. How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do we do that as people? You know, and so the movement part of it is kind of, you know, from the writer's room into shooting, and, you know, post was kind of our guide for what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with exactly what you're talking about, you're taking this show that is, you know, this really feel good, warm comedy that you put like a blanket on and watch. But it also has so much meaning and so much importance behind it.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like you've really intentionally used comedy as a tool to have these bigger conversations by rooting it through Mavis's lens and her experiences in the world?
Yeah. I don't think you can, especially, you know, doing comedy for 24 years, you cannot get to a funny place unless you've gone over that mountain and you've done the work. And so whether it's finding someone in my life or finally having kids or whatever it is, it's like, okay, it's a fast track for Mavis, right? Because we got 8 episodes and they're all like 25 minutes each. But it's, you know, asking those questions, doing the work, talking to your friends, you know, figuring out who you really are and what you want. And then, you know, and at least, you know, for us, comedy is always going to be there. Yeah. And that also was sort of like it was like a thing for like picking the writers for the room. It's just like, what have you been through?
Right.
You know, I only want to like talk to people who've like been through stuff because that's like the truest, funniest, most relatable stuff to me. And so I feel like there's always going to be like a dollop of like, you know, Brene Brown or some shit.
Yeah. I mean, we you know, as comedy creators, we always talk about tone, you know, and I think, you know, when you're selling a show to Netflix, it's to anywhere, it's like, okay, well, what's the tone? And to me, tone is how you feel. So we knew Michelle's comedy is joyful. She's a joyful person. And we knew we wanted people to feel overall joyful. Like you said, that blanket around. I appreciate that you received the show the way we want to put it into the world. So thank you for that. But, you know, I think we always wanted to be grounded in reality, and reality is hard. And so I think the joy allows us from a comedy perspective, knowing that at the end of the day, when you watch all 8, we want you to feel how we want to feel. Yeah. You know, when we watch TV, there's a lot of ugliness in the world. And so television has always been escapist for me, for my family. That's kind of how I understood it, but it allows you, that joy, I think, allows you to talk about real things. Because look, I like a relentless show. Why do I watch true crime? I don't know. I don't know why I do it, but I do. You know, sometimes you're in that mood, but there has to be balance. And I think the beauty of comedy is that you can really talk about real things. The shows I grew up on, you know, in America in the, you know, 80s and 90s were you know, Cheers and like Cosby and, you know, shows that if you go back and look, they had real moments in them, you know, even though they're their comedy. And so I think as comedy writers, it that balance is really helpful to, the world is already so overwhelming. Like, let's find the right balance. And so, I think it's been great to be able to tell stories.
I also feel like with what you're both talking about of those juxtaposing sides, that, the way that you have this very specific perspective and lens on New York really lends itself to that as well. Because you can have the greatest day of your entire life in New York City, and then you can walk around the corner, be crapped on by a bird and shouted out on the subway. And you feel like that kind of allows you to dance between these spaces in a very natural way.
Yeah. Oh, we love a piece of humble pie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes.
We have two episodes in season 2 that really take place kind of all in one day. I don't want to give any too much spoilers, but those are fun to do creatively because it does allow you to do exactly what you're talking about, which is like this New York of it all. What are all the things that can happen in one day?
Yeah.
What lesson did you take away from the day? Yeah. Who were you exposed to in the day? That's something
when's this day gonna end?
When's the day gonna end?
We've had enough day.
I mean, I think, I'm a California native and I love my state. And, but there's something different that happens in New York that is just, I think it's a product of not being in a car. It's a product of being, it's one of the greatest cities in all of the world. I mean, so, the things that can happen, magical things can happen. Yeah. It truly. And I think that that's very fun from a storytelling perspective to be able to, our show definitely has a little bit of magic. Season 2 has a little bit of magic in it. That's that kind of only in New York thing. And
a dollop will do you.
A dollop.
It also feels like the way that Mavis responds to situations and to setbacks also really shapes the narrative structure in a lot of ways. She responds to things very emotionally at first, licks her wounds, and then turns it into action. Yeah. And how does that shape the way that when you're looking at what is a setback, how are we going to pace out the comeback from this almost?
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel seen and also attacked at the same time.
That's the world. That's the world, right? That's
really seen and attacked at the same time. Guilty as charged. So yeah, I mean, Mavis, I am Mavis and Mavis is me. Okay. And this one is so good at television. She's like, how do we do that and turn it into how many acts? 3 acts? 4 acts?
Usually, 3.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm just a pretty face. LOL. But it really is fascinating writing television, especially from an emotional place, because it's like the questions that are always asked is like, has it served Mavis? Has it served the story? Where do we end up with this? Like, how does it come back or like lead her somewhere else? So it's amazing. Like, you think you're out on a fun date and you're giving some guy a blowjob with bubblegum in your mouth on the backseat of a taxi. Fellas, you know what I'm talking about. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my God, who knew that could be like, your person, it's like chemistry is so real. What was the question? Is there another question?
It was about perspective, Mavis.
Yes, perspective.
Which I remember as we were developing the series just from the start that Netflix, our executives, our partners there, loved that Mavis was optimistic, loved that Mavis, loved herself, all of these positive qualities, but from a storytelling standpoint, you need conflict. You need that, we are always trying to maintain that for her character, but let real shit happen, at the same time. And so it's a fun balance that Michelle is really able to, portray, and important to the show. I think that there could be a lot of shows, especially unfortunately with female characters who are down on themselves and, feeling so bad. And that's not ever what we wanted to put into the world. That was never going to be part of this show. And again, those can be fun to watch too. We've all been there, but this is a different thing that I think you're, that you're talking about.
Hot messes can happen to you, but you don't have to be a hot mess.
There it is.
I also appreciate that, with some of what you're describing within this friendship group, you've created this nuclear group that they can give each other tough love and they can be very open and honest with each other. But when it's delivered with love and compassion. So the conflict doesn't come from friends saying the wrong thing or falling out with each other. And so, to your point, Danielle, about figuring out where do those like little antagonistic elements come from for both of you, how have you structured the show in a way where it's the outside world that they're battling, it's not each other?
Yeah.
I mean, I think unfortunately, but maybe fortunately for TV, there are so many outside forces that are against you, and it shouldn't be groundbreaking to have a beautiful Black plus size star, and yet somehow we don't see it enough. Those elements enough. Putting her in fashion, which was a real choice for us, like to put her in fashion. Fashion can say it's inclusive. It isn't yet, right? We've had, Kia Bounds, who is our amazing costume designer. We knew we needed to find a partner on the fashion side who could give Mavis what is almost not a reality in Michelle's, real world. And you have a lot of stories that we've pulled from that are, it should be better than this. It's not. And so those stories excite us about, we have an all Black cast, which I think is really exciting. There are so many stories that need to be told. We have so much representation in the writer's room to be able to tell those stories, but obviously collaborating with our own cast and with Michelle as a creator. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of outside forces, but this season we do have a little battling between characters that I think is really fun, and I think, comes from a place of love. And Mavis and Mara Lee, I mean, just to, without a spoiler, but they look at what it happens in friendships, which we all know there can be conflict. You can love someone and be in conflict with them. Yeah. And so, we do delve into that a little bit in season 2, and it's fun.
I wish it would happen more in television and film. I feel like everyone sort of plays at a character or writes like a character, and that's like, I say it's like air quotes because it's like no one really moves in the world like that. And I'm interested in how people actually move. It's like why I'm obsessed with stand-up. It's why I go out in the crowd and talk to people. It's why I love hosting, because I'm just like, what do you actually do? That excites me. What is your day? It's not mundane to me. It's like exciting to me. How do you think? How do you figure shit out? And I feel like it was so important, while we were writing it and also filming it, that we're talking to each other how we really talk to each other. And I don't have any friends in my life that are not like Black, brown, fat, or queer, and we're not telling each other, girl, you are messing up. You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's not your friend if you can't have that conversation. And so there's a way that I speak with my friends, right? The way we get on, that I was like, this is very important because I want people to feel seen. I want them to get a little education through comedy and love. And I want them to know, and I want other creators to know, or anybody, doing shows, like, let us fly. Like, we don't need to be code switching all the time to sell something. We can also be ourselves, and that is enough, and that is beautiful. Period.
And exactly to that point of how we move in the world, Mavis as a character doesn't change who she is for other people. It's this is who I am, and get on board or get out of my way. And I love that facet of watching her just always be authentically herself. And was that something that was very specific to both of you when you first talked about creating this show together?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're fortunate to have this amazing cast who is all, a certain age. They're not, we talk about this a lot. In an exciting way that, they're at a different time in their lives. This season, I'm just out of college and I'm going to move home and not that I don't love those shows. I do love those shows, but these are people who are established. Certainly Marley is so established. Khalil's an artist and, living that life, but is, they have their own apartments. They have their, they have lives, and it's still messy. And I think in some ways, it's lovely to know that it doesn't ever have to stop being messy, because if it stops being messy, then you stop challenging yourself.
Yeah, then you're boring.
But these characters allow us to tell stories that do have a little bit more ownership of who I am, what I'm doing. Khalil goes through an arc in season 2 about his art, selling himself, selling his art. What does that mean? Who does he want to sell it to? And I think in your 20s, maybe those aren't thoughts you have necessarily. And we all need our 20s to get to our 30s, and on and on and on and on. But these characters have some life experience that is very exciting to write to. And we certainly took advantage of that in season 2 and really kind of continued to build the world and let them experience things that you could only experience because you are at a certain place in your life, And
I didn't want to be like boring. I didn't want to be like, you're boring and I'm shaming you. But it's like, you don't always have it figured out. And that's the fun part. The fun part is the messy part. Like, when I'm in an airport with my kids and they're like, how come we can't get there, get on the plane, we're on the plane. How come we can't just get to the destination? It's like, you have to find joy in waiting in line. Let's people watch. Let's play a game. You know what I mean? And you have to find joy in all these little things. Otherwise, you're just you're not going to notice anything. It's not a lived experience. You have to live in all those parts. And so whether you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, you know, these characters, like you just said so beautifully, they're figuring it out with their friends, and you're supposed to. You don't have it all figured out. If you do, you lie into yourself because you don't.
Yeah. I mean, we celebrate, you know, aging, and we have an episode that really celebrates aging because past 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, being beautiful and understanding, you know, that's something that was really central to creating the show, something that Michelle talks about in her stand-up too. But Mavis is a character, and in her real life, obviously, Mavis is a character who will celebrate anything. You got to celebrate the small moments, right? You got to celebrate anything. And that was a really guiding principle when we were first developing this. We had a whole scene. We didn't end up doing it in the first episode, but there was a whole scene where she celebrates the breakup, you know, and we didn't.
Oh my God, yes!
We wrote a version.
Time.
I know, we wrote a version of it, but you didn't end up using it because, you know, you have to refine as you continue to develop it. But that concept was always central to Mavis's character, and I think it ended up being thematically central to the show. You know, that's the type of person that this character is, and that's what's fun about being around her is like she'll celebrate anything, celebrate small things. You don't know what's coming next.
It's all business now. Like doing stand-up comedy, you're like, what are you guys celebrating? And it's like divorce party. It's like, okay, get it.
Yeah. There's also something with the fact that you were bringing up Khalil's journey in this season, and you know, I thought it was really beautiful to watch him explore this space of I'm creating art and I'm trying to do something new and different, and the uncertainty that comes with that and the way that it can make you question yourself as an artist and as a creative. And I actually wanted to ask you about, you know, kind of how that storyline kind of ties into some of your experiences in your career and your trajectory that you've had within comedy and stand-up.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was just talking about this with a friend because so many artists I know, mainly stand-up comedians, but like writers, directors, whatever they're doing, they get so afraid of the rejection that they don't even want to put themselves out there anymore. And they just, and you know, it's sort of like when my mom cooks for me. My mom she's a good cook, but she doesn't enjoy it. So the minute she gives you a plate of food, she's like, it's not good, but take it. And it's like, no, just put it down, let it live, you know? And so there's so many things you kind of have to get past. And one of them is rejection and like living in it and like almost enjoying it and being like, well, that's your opinion. And then like creating something else and not being afraid of the unknown because, you know, bigger picture, we don't know what our day is tomorrow. We could die tomorrow, you know? So it's like, if you know we're going to die, then why don't you start to live? And so, I have gotten so comfortable with rejection. I probably seem crazy to most people. But it really is getting back to perspective. You know, that thing will happen, but what are you going to do with it? Don't let it shape you. You shape yourself. And so that was really fun to put into, you know, Khalil's storyline because one of my best friends, you know, that character is written after, he stopped acting. And he also is a painter and he can put clothes together. He can like do anything. But he was like, you know what? I have to go make money. And I don't think this makes money because so many people have said no. But I'm like, there's a yes. Trust me, there is. But like, you know, you can only want it for someone, but they have to like want it for themselves.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't.
It's so hot in here. And this Tibetan. Okay.
One of the other things in the series with the way that Mavis moves through the world.
Yes, you gotta just move on. Don't look at it, just move on. It's like a crying baby on an airplane.
Just keep going with
Keep going. I love it. Very professional, this one.
But one of the things with how Mavis moves through the world is her inner monologue is very externalized. You know, she has this diatribe. Even if she's the only person in a scene, we still know what she's thinking and how she's processing
Again,
it.
I feel attacked and seen. Yet again.
I just wanted to ask you both about, you know, creating and writing the character in that way and kind of what that gives you in terms of allowing her to be so external.
I mean, have like notes on remember like at one point we were going to end each episode with like a quote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like on a Post-it.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was going to write it on the mirror, stick it on the mirror, her bathroom mirror.
Yeah. I love Doogie Howser with titties. Sorry, go ahead.
Doogie Howser.
That was the pitch.
Oh my God. We never pitched that. That
deep cut.
And it's so interesting because I feel like you like are really tuned into, which is so fun it's so fun to talk. We didn't get to talk about the show in season 1. We premiered amongst a very difficult strike that was, hard on so many people. So we're so excited to talk about it. Like, we just haven't done this a lot. We're excited because it's like, oh, what you're talking about is exactly what we were looking for in the character. So one of the things when we were developing, because there's Michelle the person who's amazing, but we have to create Mavis the character because they can't be exactly the same. We are obviously so inspired by Michelle's voice, but Mavis has to be a little bit different. So we certainly took what is wonderful about Michelle and pushed a little bit for Mavis. And that idea of being, okay, we were always like, well, what's her thing? What does she sound like? I remember in the very beginning, it was like, but what's the thing? Yeah. What's the comedy thing? What's the thing? How does it present as a character? Yeah. And I think the best characters on television, you can kind of name the thing. And for her, it's what you're talking about. It's that all of the things are going to come out, and they're very endearing, and how Michelle is able to perform it is very endearing, because I don't think everyone can have that be their comedy thing. Some people you'd be like, shut up. But like with Michelle, you are like, there's a point in there, the way she performs Mavis. And I think from a writing perspective, once we stumbled on that, it was really exciting to realize it's not like she's going to say all the right things. Oftentimes she's going to say the wrong things, but they're going to come from an honest place. That's where her character voice starts for us. And so I think it's what you're talking about. That's why we're both so excited. We're kind of like, oh my God, remember when we were doing this? I know, right? You're like triggering us, staring at each other on Zoom going like, I think this is going to be important. I think this is going to be important. How are we going to do this? So yeah, and
you got it.
And as much as with the dialogue, the physical comedy is also such a facet of her as well. We see her in Rome trying to use the water fountain and it goes all over her, or what does it feel like to see my ex for the first time? Oh, I actually physically tripped. And how do you set about figuring out in the writer's room and as the scripts are coming together, what aspects you want to have in terms of physical comedy against once you're filming, and just finding those little small details and moments?
Yeah, I mean, it's like one thing to write it, but another thing to put it up. And so sometimes you don't even know what it can do until you're like in the moment. And so the whole water fountain thing, we were just in Rome. We were like, our first day, we did like an eating walking tour, which I'm just like, two of my favorite things. Thank you so much. And our tour guide showed us a Roman water fountain. I've been to Rome a ton of times. I've never even noticed it. And I'm like, oh my God. So I tried to drink from it and it got all over me. I was like, this is insane. And then our director was there and I'm like, can we put this in the show? Because it wasn't scripted. It was like a lot of other things we were doing. And that whole day we were shooting, we're like, we don't know if we have time. We don't know if we have time. I'm like, I just need one take. I need one take. And, the sun was sunning and then it wasn't. I'm like, oh my. And the whole day I was just like, that's a great take. Can we do the water fountain? And Kim Wynn, our amazing director, she's just like, it just hits her. And it was so sweet. It was so like Mom at the Mall. It was just like, this is your show. This is going to make you happy. You got to do it. Like I've asked her enough times, she's like, we got to do it. And so they set up a camera. I'm like, I just need the one take. And then I just like went in and it's like, it's so fun. It's so free. It's just like coloring outside the lines, physical comedy when it's done right. And, you can feel it and, and you don't want to hurt yourself. So there's like that fine line. Just feels like you're unlearning everything you've ever been taught. And then you're like almost speaking your own language to yourself. I don't know how to describe it any other way than that. But I'm a fan of physical comedy, although like we've written some stuff and then like, you talk about it so much and there's a production meeting and you need
stunts and a pad.
And I'm just like, oh, this is too much already. But sometimes it works too. Like we had,
we cut it.
We had storyboards for like when I went in and did the fight. And we like rehearsed it. And that was fun too, because I was like pulling this girl's hair.
Linda Mendoza, who shot the first 2 episodes, actually paid her own money, which I think Netflix repaid her. I'm pretty sure they did. But she went with storyboards done for that fight sequence because she was like, it's really gonna it's not a fight sequence, it's a punching kick sequence. But she's like, we really need to understand how this is gonna, how this is gonna work. So so it's the physical comedy. I mean, as a writer creator, it's so amazing. We have Michelle is just so gifted at improvisation and physical comedy. So is Tone. So is Tasha. And there was a thing that 2 of our writers wrote in for an episode with Tasha where she stubs her toe, and I just knew it was going to be hysterical because she stubs it at exactly a time when you don't want to be stubbing your toe if she's trying to get out of the bedroom. Spoiler. And she was spoiler. And she was just so funny doing it. You know, we do a variety of takes, and she gives you a little bit, you know, Tona has that ability to do that too. And so when you have, not every cast has that, you know, we have a lot of stand-ups, especially in season 2, we brought in even more guest cast, you know, stand-ups. Dion Cole has an amazing little arc with us, but like the physicality of it is a real gift.
And everyone's committing.
Yeah.
Everyone's committing to the bit, which is amazing. Nobody is better than anybody. Everybody, it doesn't like matter if you're Anderson .Paak or not. Like everyone is committing to the bit, which is amazing because I'm committing. So, you know, meet me where I'm at, honey. Let's go.
Anderson .Paak's in the show this season. That's why she said it. Otherwise, it'd be a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Whether you're Anderson .Paak or
I know.
not. It's like a weird.
Sorry, Mariah. It was just the show.
You've also talked about how with this show that you knew that you could bring the comedy, but you wanted to make sure that it felt important and impactful. And I think there's so much vulnerability that we get to see in even deeper ways in this season of the show.
Yeah.
And I was interested in, for both of you, if working on season 2 of this show and just working on the foundation of everything that you'd already built, if it still felt like the comedy came first and then you were figuring out those pieces, or if it more cohesively came together right at the get-go for both of you.
I think... Yeah, it's hard to say because emotional stuff is funny to some people. You know what I mean? Like whether we're talking about menopause or finding a jacket that's like every jacket's too small, like it's painful, but it's hilarious. You know what I mean? So I think you can't have one without the other, to be honest.
I think the process in the room is pretty organic because there have been times where we've come at it from what's the funny thing, and those things tend not to work. I find in doing this for a long time. It's sometimes like when we took Bubblegum Blowjob, we knew that was going somewhere. It was a sort of interesting thing to know because that's not how you usually want to design a story. You don't necessarily want to know this and then build around it. Yeah. We had a really, you know, we have such talented writers, and to their credit, it was the writer's room in season 1 that said that's how she should meet Luca. And I remember just going like, oh no, is that a meet cute? I don't know if that's a meet cute, but you know, you've never seen it before. And they were adamant. The writers really were like, no, this is going to be how she meets this guy who's going to be significant in our show. Yeah. Yeah. And they were totally right. Yeah. And it really worked. And it was so endearing and lovely. But I think both things happen, but they just have to be organic. You have to make sure it's going the right place. Because I think we've all, look, I've been there. I've written those episodes.
I think you said Bubblegum Blowjob.
No, we've not all been there.
Okay. No. Because I was like, I missed that.
No. Okay. My book's coming out next year. No, where you try and force something, and then an audience is savvy. They watch it and they go, "This feels forced," you know. Yeah. And it's never worth it. Mm-hmm. You got to get there. The characters have to get there in a way that is believable, you know. Otherwise, it's a cartoon, and cartoons are awesome and funny and have their own place. But that's certainly not what I think we're trying to come from a grounded place.
Yeah. Well, you've done such a beautiful job in creating season 2. It's so fantastic. So congratulations on an amazing season. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching it.